Scientists altered the measles virus to fight diseases instead of causing them. Their breakthrough even led to a cure for cancer.
And how many are cancer-free?
10,009.
After some time, the modified virus mutated, spiraled out of control, and swept through the population, turning most humans into violent nocturnal creatures known as dark seekers. These beings avoided sunlight and hunted the few survivors left. 3 years after the virus outbreak, New York City had become a desolate ruin. Wildlife once kept in captivity now roamed freely through empty streets. Among the ruins lived Robert, a former army scientist trained in virology. His only companion was his loyal dog, Sam. Together, they hunted for food, often switching cars to move through the city. To stay safe, Robert kept a strict routine. His watch alarm reminded him to head home before sunset. His house is heavily secured, and he regularly cleans the entrance with bleach to block his scent from the mutants. Inside, shelves were stocked with food, and he often played recordings of old news broadcasts. He listened to music, cooked meals, talked to Sam, and bathed her.
Sam.
But at night, the silence was shattered. He'd hide in the bathtub with Sam and a gun, the growls and screams from outside stirring painful memories of his family. When the virus first began spreading, the government quarantined the island to contain the infection. Chaos erupted as people scrambled to escape. Robert had raced to find his wife Zoe, their daughter Marley, and a young Sam. He tried to get them to safety, urging them to leave the island. But when Zoe realized Robert intended to stay behind and work on a cure, they argued bitterly, so much that it nearly caused an accident on the road.
I'm not gonna let this happen.
You can't.
In the present, Robert exercises alongside Sam. Then he retreated to his underground lab to monitor his experiments. Sam wasn't allowed down there. She could carry the virus. Robert, however, was one of the rare immune. In cages, infected rats served as test subjects for the many treatments he developed. Suddenly, Robert noticed something remarkable. One of the infected lab rats was beginning to recover. It was the first real sign of progress in years. Encouraged by this breakthrough, he knew the next step would require testing the cure on a human subject.
Next candidate for human trials.
Later that day, Robert and Sam visited an old video store. Inside, he had placed mannequins throughout the aisles to create the illusion of a social life. He spoke to them like old friends, carefully returning each movie before choosing another.
Never mind. Hey, I'll see you in the morning.
He even joked to Sam about one of the mannequins pretending to flirt with him and promised that maybe one day he'd flirt back.
What am I supposed to say? Hello. Want to see some infected rats?
Afterward, they stopped by a park where Robert had planted vegetables. He picked some for their meals, keeping their supply going. They also kept track of which homes they had already searched by marking a map. Each day they picked a new area to explore, looking for food and essentials. Once they refueled the car, Robert broadcasted a radio message inviting any survivors to come find him. While waiting, he found ways to pass the time. Later that day, Sam chased a deer darting through the ruins. Robert followed as they tracked it through the city, but the chase took a turn when the frightened animal ran into a dark, abandoned building. Sam rushed in behind it. Calling for Sam didn't help. She wouldn't come out. Knowing the danger, but unwilling to leave her behind, Robert carefully stepped inside, doing his best to move silently. He pressed on, moving cautiously through the shadows. Around a corner, he caught sight of several dark seekers gathered silently near a wall. Without hesitation, Robert turned off his light and backed away slowly, avoiding detection. Soon he spotted Sam huddled beneath a desk, too terrified to move. Her fear told him something was nearby. Suddenly, a dark seeker lunged at Robert from behind. He reacted instantly, firing a shot that took the creature down. Grabbing Sam, he urged her to take a different path while he distracted their pursuers. As more of the creatures closed in, he sprinted toward a window and leapt out. Sunlight blasted, striking the attackers. After making it out with Sam, Robert set a trap. On a nearby bridge, he parked a truck and laid out old tarps at the entrance of a building. Telling Sam to stay back, he smeared some of his own blood on the fabric to lure in the infected.
So look, if I'm not back by dark, just go.
When the creatures took the bait and rushed forward, the trap snapped shut, the truck shifted, and the tarps collapsed, pulling several of them into a makeshift snare. One of the infected, likely their leader, stepped into the light just long enough to roar at Robert in rage before retreating, burned by the sun. Later that day, Robert was back in his lab, preparing to test the potential cure. A female Dark Seeker, captured earlier, was strapped securely to a table. First, he confirmed her infection using UV light. He injected her with the new serum, the same formula that had worked on the rat. For a moment, there was no reaction. Then, the subject began to thrash violently and scream, her body fighting the drug.
Respiration slowing. Pulse 190. Core temperature.
The monitors went flat, vital signs gone. Alarmed, Robert quickly tried to revive her with another injection, desperate to keep her alive. But nothing happened.
GA series serum 391 compound 6. Ineffective on humans.
He then moved the infected woman behind a sealed glass door, locking her in before starting his daily log. In his recording, he noted something unusual. During the earlier encounter, the Alpha Dark Seeker had willingly exposed himself to sunlight. This strange behavior suggested something deeper. Robert wondered if their basic instincts were deteriorating, maybe from brain damage, extreme hunger, or total isolation.
Typical human behavior is now entirely absent.
The observation triggered painful memories. Robert thought back to the beginning of the outbreak. The city had plunged into chaos, people screaming in the streets, acting without reason.
Mommy, they have guns! It's okay, they're in the army like Daddy.
Ships were evacuating those who had passed screenings, but only a select few were allowed to leave. Many were trapped, especially families with children, pleading for help. Military checkpoints blocked the roads, but Robert, being part of the army, was promised safe passage. When they finally reached the evacuation zone, soldiers scanned them for signs of infection. Marley, his daughter, was cleared immediately. Zoe's test failed. Panic took hold of them both, terrified at the thought of being separated. Robert used his authority to demand another scan. Thankfully, Zoe passed the second time.
Scan her again. Stand down. It's clear.
Because they were military dependents, they were sent by helicopter. Robert chose to stay behind, determined to find a cure. As they parted, Zoe and Marley left Sam, still just a puppy, in his care. In the present, life had returned to routine. Robert and Sam moved through their daily cycle as usual. It is Robert's birthday today, and he joked about it with Sam.
It's my birthday. You gonna sing?
But just as they were heading home for the evening, something felt wrong. Near the bridge, a mannequin stood upright, exactly like the ones Robert used in the video store. But this one, he didn't remember placing it there. Feeling like he was losing his grip on reality, Robert raised his gun and fired at the mannequin. It toppled over, lifeless. Still, something didn't feel right. He thought he heard whispers, soft haunting sounds coming from nearby. In a panic, he fired wildly into the air. Trying to make sense of it, he stepped closer to the fallen mannequin. Suddenly, a hidden trap triggered, a vehicle dropped from above, and Robert was yanked upward, caught in a rope snare. Blood dripped from a cut on his head. He realized too late what had happened. The Dark Seekers had learned from him. They had copied his trap. Unconscious, he hung there until his wristwatch alarm blared, waking him just as the sun began to set. Sam was still there, waiting, but danger was closing in. Using a small knife, Robert managed to cut himself free from the trap. He crashed hard onto the ground, injuring his leg badly. In pain, he crawled across the pavement, dragging his body forward. Sam followed closely behind, but soon froze. There was a low, menacing growl coming from a nearby building.
Let's go.
Emerging from the shadows was the Alpha, leading a pack of infected dogs. With a chilling stare, the Alpha let them loose. The dogs charged, but as they approached, the fading sunlight stung their skin. It was just enough to hold them back, at least for a moment. Knowing time was running out, Robert pushed himself to his feet and limped toward his car. He reached it just as the last light disappeared, barely managing to grab a weapon. Without delay, the infected dogs attacked. One of them sank its teeth into Sam as she tried to defend him. Robert fought them off desperately, trying to aim while wrestling with pain and panic. One by one, he brought them down. Sam, however, was badly hurt. Robert rushed Sam to the lab. Once inside, he did everything he could, administering the experimental serum, hoping to save her. As he held her close, he softly sang to calm her. But it didn't work. Sam began to change. Her breathing changed, her body twitched, and it was clear what was happening. Crushed by grief, Robert knew there was only one thing left to do. He shut out her frightened cries and ended it quickly. Later, Robert buried Sam in the garden, placing stones over the grave with care. Afterward, he tried to return to his daily routine, but it was different now. In an effort to cling to some fragment of normalcy, Robert returned to the video store. This time, he stood in front of one of them. The one he'd always imagined was flirting with him. Speaking aloud, he reminded the mannequin of a promise he had once made to his best friend.
Promise, my friend, I would say hello to you today.
Robert left the store, got into his car, and drove off into the night, driven by grief and fury. He sped through the city and deliberately crashed into a group of Dark Seekers, mowing them down for revenge. The attack was reckless, and although he took down several of them, more appeared. Under the Alpha's command, they coordinated a counterattack. One of them climbed a nearby pole and managed to knock down a light fixture, sending it crashing onto Robert's vehicle. Others flipped the car, pinning him inside. As the Alpha crept through the broken window, ready to strike, a burst of ultraviolet light suddenly flared. It blinded the creatures and forced them to retreat. Everything went black for Robert after that. When he regained consciousness, he was in a different vehicle. A stranger asked where to take him. Still disoriented, Robert gave his home address. As he drifted into sleep, memories of his past returned. He saw his family again. He remembered the panic at the evacuation site, how the military had begun bombing bridges to prevent the spread of infection. One helicopter, overloaded with desperate civilians trying to escape, lost control and crashed into the aircraft, carrying Zoe and Marley. The next morning, Robert woke to the sound of Shrek playing on the TV. His leg had been stitched up, though pain lingered. Still cautious, he reached for a gun and moved slowly toward the kitchen. There were two strangers, a woman and a young boy. Their names were Anna and Ethan. They were the ones who had saved him.
Your leg is okay, but it won't be for very long if you don't start a course soon.
Anna had cooked breakfast, and Robert, lowering the gun, joined them at the table. She explained that they were from Maryland and had heard his radio message. On their way to Vermont, where survivors were rumored to be living in a mountain-safe zone, They had stopped to find him. Robert didn't believe her. He dismissed the idea of any safe place, insisting that no one else was alive. When she tried to convince him, he grew upset.
Everybody's dead.
Later, after regaining his composure, he returned. Ethan was watching the movie again, and Robert took the chance to quote a line, showing the boy he meant no harm.
Why don't you go celebrate your freedom with your own friends?
He admitted how much he loved the film. After things had settled, Robert thanked Anna for saving his life. They spoke briefly, and she shared a little of her own story. She had been on a Red Cross ship evacuating people from Sao Paulo, but the safety of the ocean didn't last. The Navy broke up their group, and when they returned to land in search of supplies, someone stole their boat. Among them were 5 people who, like Robert, were immune, but none survived. The Dark Seekers hunted them down.
He said 5.
The Dark Seekers got them.
Even after everything, Anna still believed in the safe zone in Vermont. She planned to make the journey there, but Robert had made up his mind. He would stay behind, continuing his work at Ground Zero, where he felt he had the best chance of finding a cure.
I'm not gonna let this happen. I can still fix this.
Anna comes to his lab and sees the Dark Seeker on the table. He reassures her that it is heavily sedated and keeps working. Later, as he takes Ethan upstairs, Anna sees a picture of Marley and compliments her. When he tells her they named her after Bob Marley, Anna doesn't even recognize him. Robert opens his music and tells her his story.
He believed that you could cure racism and hate, literally.
When night came, Robert sealed the house. Anna once again asks him to go with them, but Robert refuses. She tried to convince him, saying that God has a plan. This made him angry, and he reminded her that everyone is dead, and they are the only survivors. He shouted furious, telling her that God had abandoned them.
Every single person has ever known is dead!
Before Anna could reply, a strange sound echoed from outside. Something or someone was approaching. The infected had returned, and this time they weren't wandering aimlessly. They had tracked Robert by the scent of the blood he had spilled during the trap attack the night before. Now they were surrounding the house. Realizing what was happening, Anna ran to find Ethan, while Robert rushed to activate the security lights outside. But it was no use. The Dark Seekers ignored the lights and tore through them as if they weren't there. Thinking fast, Robert triggered a set of hidden explosives buried outside the house. A powerful blast shook the ground, taking out a large group of the attackers. Heading upstairs to find Anna and Ethan, Robert was blindsided. Alpha lunged at him from the shadows. The two crashed into each other and began fighting. Robert grabbed a screwdriver from the floor and drove it into the creature, but it barely flinched. Alpha hurled him across the room. In the chaos, Robert remembered a weapon he had stashed among a bundle of umbrellas. Scrambling to his feet, he reached it just in time. He fired, but Alpha ducked into another room to avoid the bullets. Thinking quickly, Robert shot at a gas canister nearby. The explosion rocked the building and forced Alpha back upstairs. Robert didn't hesitate. He followed, firing non-stop as Alpha moved through the house. Just before Robert could reach him again, the creature leapt through a window and vanished into the night. Still breathing hard, Robert searched the house until he found Anna and Ethan hiding under some broken furniture. They were trapped in a room where a Dark Seeker was tearing through the ceiling above them. Spotting a firearm on a nearby table, Robert rushed in, grabbed it, and aimed. Just as the creature turned to attack, he pulled the trigger. Just as Robert brought down the last infected creature, a new sound rose from outside. More were coming, Alpha had returned, and this time he'd brought reinforcements.
Go to the lab.
Realizing the house wouldn't hold much longer, Robert, Anna, and Ethan rushed down to the lab, hoping the reinforced space would buy them some time. Above them, the Dark Seekers began scaling the building, using the same hole one of their own had created earlier. Inside the lab, Robert and Anna made a startling discovery. The infected woman, his test subject, was showing signs of recovery. Her vitals were stabilizing, the serum was working. The breakthrough Robert had been chasing for years was finally real.
It's working.
The infected burst into the lab area, forcing Robert to slam shut the thick glass door between them. He tried speaking to them, telling them he could help, that he had a cure, but they didn't understand his words. They only pressed harder against the glass. Then Alpha appeared. Robert realizes that they cannot escape the creatures. He lowered his weapon. He injected the last serum into his subject. Against Anna's frightened protests, he put her and Ethan in the fireplace and made sure they are secure. He then pulls out a grenade from the drawer and pulls the safety pin. He then opens the door and steps out, creating a massive explosion along. Sometimes later, Anna drives with Ethan and finally reaches the place she dreamt of going. She stops the car and approaches the gate. The guards let her in, and she gives them the serum that Robert had produced, giving hope to humanity once again. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Like the video and subscribe to our channel for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.